Instagram has changed its settings. YouTube, sorry, we're on YouTube, not Instagram. I'm a bit out of practice here at Crux Stationalis with being, you know, so much on, in presence on social media. The Jubilee year has been crazy, as you can imagine. So this is the second part of the original stream. Once I'm done with this live, I'll tag it in the description of the video. Here we are. We've visited one church already. Thankfully, we ran into a Dominican friend as I was walking up the Aventine Hill. So as you can imagine, well, I always have stories when it comes to my time in Italy. But let me just start again. We're here at San Giorgio. We were up on the Aventine Hill. From the Aventine Hill, we saw St. Peter's Basilica, which is where we're going to end up today. And why is that? Because St. Peter's Basilica is the Roman Station Church for Quinquagesima Sunday, which is tomorrow. Here we are at San Giorgio a Velabro. What I'm doing in this series on Saturdays, I'm going to come live for however long it takes to walk through Rome and explore the Roman station churches. I'll just say hi to you for a bit to get some FaceTime with you. So we are going to be today just going to the church for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and ending up at St. Peter's, which is tomorrow's Roman Station Church. It's a bit topsy-turvy because we are in this first week of Lent, which isn't really the first week of Lent. It's leading up to the first week of Lent with Ash Wednesday. Tomorrow, I'll be coming live every Saturday with these tours. I want you to explore the streets of Rome. Like, look, even if it's dirty. I want to explore the streets of Rome with you, and that way I can give you sort of the ability to ask me questions when it comes to these Roman station churches. I don't have the manpower, the bandwidth to create sort of dedicated videos this year, editing them and everything like that. But I have time to be with you here on this live stream where I'm going to be, as I said, walking through these churches, giving you the opportunity to explore them as you're walking through the streets of Rome with me. And then if you want to explore them even more, because I'm not going to have time to explain everything about the churches, you can go into the caption of the video and explore with the video series that I've made in the past of these Roman station churches. Let's turn this back around. This is a peaceful church. If you were on the first live, we walked through Santa Sabina on the Aventine Hill, which was, I know I don't have service inside this church, so I'm not even going to risk it. It was a semi-crowded area. The Aventine is always busy because everyone's looking through the keyhole in order to see the cupola of St. Peter's in the distance. So we opted for starting in the garden of Santa Sabina. Thanks to our Dominican friend. And now we're here on the foot of the Palatine. So it's very interesting, if you know the history of Rome, you know Romulus and Remus. Rome is named after Romulus. Interestingly, this is a new pathway which was put up in the last year, and I have yet to walk on it. Makes it a bit easier to walk on this skinny street. But Romulus and Remus were raised by the she-wolf, according to legend, right here. And so it became the center of imperial Rome. Let me sending this to people. So I'm probably not going to have anyone in this live stream because this is the second live stream due to technical errors, but I'm happy now I have it horizontal format. There was a hidden setting in the back end of YouTube that didn't allow me to do this. Hello, Agnese. I think it just might be you and me. as I walk through the Roman station churches. So Agnese is the original pilgrim, Pellegrina Romana, who introduced me to the Roman station churches years and years ago. She was the one taking photos, and they'd go on to various blogs. Everyone loved the photos because everyone loves to walk along with us at the Roman station churches. This is another one, but we don't go here until next week, Santa Anastasia. But as I was saying, this is where Imperial Rome on the Palatine Hill ended up being the center, because Romulus and Remus were raised here, according to legend, by the she-wolf, and Romulus ended up beating out his brother, Remus. Remus wanted to set up Rome, the legend goes. Remus wanted to set up Rome on the Aventine, but we started up there at Santa Sabina and then came down the hill. Remus wanted Imperial Rome to be on the Aventine Hill. Romulus wanted the Palatine Hill. I'm going to walk with you on Circo Massimo. And the story goes, the followers of Remus were kind of teasing Romulus, and they stepped over a wall. I've seen a sort of etching of it before. The wall looked basically like this, and they stepped over the wall, and because of this sort of transgression against Romulus, Remus was killed. And so Romulus ended up being the leader of Rome, and also for whom Rome is named. I don't know if I got my Roman history correct that well. But the reason why that's important for us is because we just passed Santa Anastasia, which is right there. And Santa Anastasia, if you are really up in the Roman station church sort of jargon, you'll know that Santa Anastasia is also the station church for Christmas Day, obviously commemorating the incarnation of Christ. But because this church was so important to the start of Rome, the foundation of our faith in Christ's incarnation, or the salvific aspect of our faith in Christ's incarnation, all comes to mind here at Santa Anastasia, this Roman martyr who's recalled in the traditional liturgy also on Christmas morning. Here we are, walking next to Circo Massimo. This used to be a big circus. There was one similar next to St. Peter's, the Circus of Nero, which is where St. Peter was martyred. My favorite aspect is this cypress just in the middle. But as I was saying, we started up on the Aventine Hill. We came down. That's where the Pope will have Mass on Ash Wednesday with the penitential procession. He starts from the Collect Church. So every church that we're going to be visiting, or most every church, also has a Collect Church where, on the penitential days, the faithful of Rome would gather behind a Crux Stationalis, a station cross. That's whence our name comes, at Crux Stationalis. And each sort of section of Rome had their own Crux Stationalis, and they would gather, the deacon would take up the cross, and they would gather behind their respective crosses. And so we too go through this journey of Lent, kind of going from precisely going from one tomb of a martyr to another tomb of a martyr. Or, when we turn around, hopefully we'll have a nice view of St. Peter's Basilica, or going to the most significant sort of spiritual centers of Rome, especially in the major basilicas. For example, we don't go to St. Mary Major for any martyr. We go for the sort of bond of Marian devotion and the emphasis of the Incarnation and the Christmas and the relics that are there of the infancy of Christ. So for those of you who are new to Crux Stationalis, if you stumbled upon this video, I'm going to take you to the most ancient churches of Rome and hopefully just have fun on these Saturdays. Hopefully, I sort of came up with this idea yesterday because, as I was saying at the start of this video, I've been working at very hard during the Jubilee year, trying to also produce content here for you at Crux Stationalis, but also I work on the social media team for EWTN Vatican office, which works closely with the other social media teams across the EWTN family, and we really focus on all the news that comes from the Pope, from the Vatican, and we get that to you on social media. So here I have my years-long project of Crux Stationalis, where I've been able to sort of share with you what the Romans have shared with me, which is this devotion to the martyrs, this devotion to the heroic example of those who gave their life in union with the sacrifice of Christ. I know you're just looking at, beautiful clouds, but you're just looking at clouds right now. Still don't see St. Peter's behind me. This is a quite concentrated area for station churches. On the Aventine Hill, we have Santa Sabina and Santa Prisca, which we go to quite late in some ruins of Imperial Palace. We go to Santa Prisca quite late in the season of Lent. Then we also, if you continue walking all the way down here, we have San Sisto Vecchio, St. Sixtus, the old church of St. Sixtus, which is where Sixtus II and St. Lawrence bid farewell to each other before Sixtus's martyrdom, and then just 3 or 4 days later, I can't remember, the martyrdom of St. Lawrence. As we go along through Rome's station churches, we're going to come across a lot of churches devoted to St. Lawrence, because St. Lawrence is the third patron of Rome after Saints Peter and Paul. The famous story goes, he was a deacon and the emperor wanted him to turn over the rich. He was responsible for the riches of the church, and the emperor wanted him to turn over the riches of the church. And so within like 3 days, this was, the story goes, August 6th, Sixtus II was martyred. And then Lawrence was given this threat of turning over the treasures of the church, and he had 3 days to do it, and he didn't. He distributed the treasures of the church, and what he did was he gathered the poor, he gathered the people of the church, and he presented them to the emperor and said, these are the treasures of the church. And of course the emperor wasn't happy with that. Oh, bummer. I don't know where the good view is. I don't know if Agnese is still watching, but from here, at some point, you can see St. Peter's, but I'll just show you the ruins of the circus here. We are going up on the Caelian Hill. I apologize for the displeasure of the fact that I have 2 lives that went today. It's not how I planned it. It's a bit embarrassing after so many years on social media, but here we are. We're sorted out for the coming week. I have a great surprise for you next week. I actually won't be in Rome, but I'll be in another town, and I'm going to show you historic churches there. And then we'll take up our exploration of Rome following that. But the reason why I'm telling you that is I should have crossed over there, but I was distracted by the live stream. So I'll come live here every Saturday, and then if we go down there, there's the Colosseum and the Arch of Constantine, and then I'll be live every day on Instagram. I know you're just looking at cars, but this is Rome as well, and graffiti. So I'll be live every day on Instagram as I'm walking to the churches, and that way I'll be able to give you sort of greater history of those particular churches. But if you look in the caption of this video, you'll also find beautiful sun right now. I thought it was supposed to be raining today, which is why I have my umbrella. If you look in the caption of the video, you will see that I have it linked to the videos in which I explore sort of in depth the history and the art of each of the Roman station churches. That means the faithful followers of Crux Stationalis have seen those videos, but it's always good to refresh ourselves and to get sort of a greater in-depth view. Because as I'm going live with you throughout this series, I won't be able to always go into the churches, either just out of respect, if there's liturgies going on, or I'll be traveling on, we'll be doing this on Saturday afternoon in Rome, if any of them might be closed. But also, anyone who has had cell service in Italy knows that it's not the greatest, at least I don't have the greatest luck with cellular plans. So usually I lose connection inside most of the churches. So we don't get to really see the inside of these churches on a live stream. But that's why I have them for you in the caption of the video. Here we have St. Gregory the Great. You know what? It's really interesting. As I'm walking, I was thinking all this journeying was going to take a lot more time, but these station churches don't really are not that far apart from each other. So I'm happy. This is why. I mean, I've been doing this for years, and I've lived here for 10 years. So you think I wouldn't be confused by that, but this is something that I've never done, just walk from these station churches to the next station churches. So this is not a station church, but it's a church in honor of St. Gregory the Great, who, as Pope, established a monastery here, which was one of also, anyways, I'm not great at history, but here we are. This is also the community of the Missionaries of Charity. And we get to walk up this hill. So we're going to Saints John and Paul, Santi Giovanni e Paolo al Celio, on the Caelian Hill. And we come across these flying buttresses, which is quite unique for Rome. Here, you have the Chapel of St. Paul of the Cross. So that's a later addition. St. Paul of the Cross is the founder of the Passionist Fathers, whom I'm close to. So this is one of my favorite churches in Rome. He's buried here. We have an altar dedicated to St. Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows, who is the saint who introduced me to the Passionist charism, and especially to stronger devotion to Our Lady of Sorrows. And sorry, I'm distracted by the works that are going on in this structure next to me. And we have also an altar dedicated to Saint Gemma. But here we have the flying buttresses, and just in right here you have an entrance to the Case Romane, to excavations that have been done recently, which show you sort of Roman houses. It was underneath here where Saints John and Paul lived, where their house was, and it's there that they were martyred. So we can see that place inside the basilica. This is a church for weddings because there's these chandeliers and it's set apart, and you have a bit more parking. In fact, it looks like there's a wedding right now with all of this parking. And so we have Passionist General House here, the Curia of the Passionists. And the Church of Saints John and Paul. Let's just explore. The Passionists aren't the first to live here. They were gifted this monastery after their growth. They originally lived sort of nearby where I live, on the seaside, in Monte Argentaro, where he lived with in a small little structure, and now that's where they have a monastery there. And then eventually they came to Rome and were gifted another structure near St. John Lateran, and eventually were given this. And they call it not a monastery, but they call it a retreat, un ritiro. So if I lose, I'll just head back outside. St. Gabriel. Here's the burial place.